11th of July, year 678. I can't believe this has happened to someone like me, being but under a child who doesn't even himself trust in his abilities. How am I supposed to take such a humiliation? Without Mage Merlin, we wouldn't be here. We'd already be lost in these woods and slowly dying. Could I call this day of misfortune? Indeed I can. Apologize that previous outburst of emotions. These last 2 days have just been stressful. Our slang scout has been caught by deaths, those rudimentary animals. He had scratches and bite marks all over his legs and arms. It wasn't long until he lost his sanity and became one of those poisonous, rotting excuses of life form. King Zarek wished me to join under Mage Merlin and Atreus to form a small independent battle group. I think this whole idea of adventuring to the Valley of the Endless Deaths is a horrible idea. I don't know what was it that map led us into that pit of deceit and venom. I haven't heard about any treasures being hidden here. Time can only tell if there is even any to begin with. During the same afternoon, after some time spent with Atreus, I start to feel bad for him. He didn't wish the position he is in. Atreus seems to be conflicted and torn by his family and self-esteem. Self-hate and fear of loss have certainly made him a sour person. However, he has been a leader for a while, and I can't complain about him anymore. After we talked to each other for a while, trying to get us know, he just feels like a proper man, I could say. A man who was just put into difficult and otherwise undesirable and ungrateful position. Now I have to get some sleep. Tomorrow will be another day. Letter to Amelie Lancelot. Dear Amelie, my wife, I've already written you twice today, but I think even that is not enough. I am sent on a mission which dangers are reaching higher than the walls of Castle Iris. I am sent to venture inside the Valley of Endless Deaths. Nature blossoms there for some reason, but it is full of those undead deaths looking for more flesh and blood for them. No matter what a man says, I can't assure you anyway that I am going to return. Do not fear for me, I already fear. Pray for me, but also pray for my newfound captain, Atreus. All these sleepless nights out of stress have caused me to write this letter for you, dear. I just want you to know where I am and how am I doing. May my sword's protection reach out to you as well. P.S. My last wish would be that you solve the disappearances which have been going on for a while in Westwind. I may not help with you them anymore. Your appointed husband, Arthur. Arthur Lancelot Memoirs. 12th of July, 778. I just gave my last letter to the courier before marching forward. I recognize that something has changed in the king. Even his own child couldn't get through to him last night. This conquest is certainly affecting him in a way that no one can describe. He was not like this before. Something must have happened inside the monstrosity of Cargill's Keep, which is affecting his mental health. Just give me the answer. Wouldn't you know? Atreus feels a shift in his father's behavior, although he himself does not understand it either. Isn't it odd? We spoke a little about his father's state until we finally set our foot to this accursed forest. It is just so unnerving and unrelenting. No matter the way I try to sense myself together, I feel like just in the corner of my eye I see a dead attacking me. What else would you expect? We are in their home territory right now. Atreus soon comforted me, He said that Merlin knows what to do. After a while of marching, rain caught up us. Evening was closing to a night and we seemed to agree that we need to rest. We've set a camp to a relatively quiet spot. I hold no fear anymore. Soldiers with us are seasoned fighters, and Atreus seems like a good person. I am sure that he's growing into a fine leader. After a while of sitting inside this tent and looking at my memoirs, I realized that every time I fear, always it's at the highest before an event. Now, when we are in this valley, this all seems like a normal place. I'll go to the campfire and then to sleep. I'll be writing again tomorrow. 14th of July. Merlin, he's dead now. I can't believe it. On Merlin's behalf, we also lost the map we had. Lost in these identical trees and rocks certainly won't complement our travels. Just when I thought I'd learned to come in terms with this mission and the environment, everything turned to the worst. My worst nightmare from the Chaos Empire. Those dead just keep coming. I don't know how to deal with them. Afternoon. After our first proper meal in days, I finally feel like I'm doing better. We had berries and some other fruits and vegetables from this land. They weren't the best option for nutrition, but I don't complain anymore. I finally managed to calm myself a little bit. As I stated before about the deaths in this valley, they are just normal deaths. However, they seem to be afraid of daylight. After Merlin said we were ambushed by 20 or other deaths. Us in a group of 25 men overwhelmed them. When we saw more deaths closing in until the daylight started to send its first shines. All those red glowing eyes suddenly disappeared back into the darkness when they realized the incoming dawn. Evening. I am back here. Prince Atreus appears to be very devastated by Merlin's death. In today's campfire, his eyes were completely empty and he just kept staring into apparent nothingness. He wasn't even eating those sweet and delicious fruits. His arms just keep twitching when he uses them and his voice sounds very... I don't know how to describe it. Would it be artificial? Steady and forced. I don't know what he wants. Maybe I shouldn't even write about this. 15th of July. This morning has to be even more stressful than before. We lost our true leader, but that doesn't mean much. The deaths in this valley just keep coming back. I feel my hands shaking even right now. Too tired. I'm back now writing because I hate everyone else. Am I the only one who's afraid? They keep talking about what we should do next and how we can survive. I don't think those things whenever I try to see more. Everything is just so hopeless. I don't know, nor do I want to know how to survive. I haven't slept for days now. Not before this operation, and certainly not now. The smell here. Whether inside my tent or outside, I still feel like I'm about to vomit. Whether it is our comrades or those rudimentary monsters, our camp smells like a cemetery. Corpses and flies everywhere. No wonder why everyone wants to move from here. I just don't have the capacity for it. 4 or 3 nights in this forest. I only could describe it as a nightmare. I won't keep going. What if I try it? They call it a legend, but I just don't. I just don't know. What if I'll try it? Soon blood starts to stream on the paper. Atreus' notes. To whoever is reading these memoirs, Arthur Lancelot is still alive. However, he must be taken away from the rest of my troops. Today, only a few minutes he spent outside of his tent. Arthur was actively mongering fear amongst my troops and my subordinates. It is obvious that we have to move away from here. Food is running out, and the stink of death just keeps getting stronger. Despite good ideas about our next camp, Arthur was not giving any of it. To one of each idea, he presented at least 10 different outcomes, how we will die because of it. Rest of the day he spent writing today's memoir. However, further examination gave me a reason to believe that he has planned a suicide. I was sitting on our campfire trying to burn some of these corpses here. Well, I was completely stuck on grief. I'm the head of authority, but I can't or know how to help. I'm just stuck grieving and fearing until now. I heard loud grunting, laughing and breathing from Arthur's tent, and I couldn't help myself. I stepped inside his tent, and what greeted myself were at least a wake-up call. Arthur laid unconscious on his desk and sword in his hands. Both wrists were cut open and blood had poured around everywhere. I knew Arthur was not a very positive man, but this is just horrible. His wounds will swell and, because of lack of hygiene, they'll sure become inflamed. Arthur's face gestured some sort of pleasure and relief. It seemed like he wished to die. Luckily, something made him faint before any further cuts were made to his wrists. It looked obnoxious, disgusting and depressing. A soldier hurting himself while writing with shaking and tired fingers about his nihilistic worldview. If this is just the beginning, I have to stand up. This army needs its leader, and I have to assure that it gets one. Who misses Merlin when the army has me to rely on? I ordered Earl Lancelot under surveillance because he's not in the condition to fight. He can still be saved. Westwind needs its Earl, and I need my soldiers. Night falls soon, and deaths will attack. If this is the morale my troops are living with, all hope will be lost soon. Atreus, the royal crowned prince of Inamorta and the leader of the Speartons. Letter to home. My dear wife, I've been stuck inside this big valley now 2 days. I don't know will this letter ever reach to you, but even so, I still wish to get my thoughts on this paper. If I'll ever get the chance to do this, this letter will be sent to you faster than light. My biggest wish is to get my thoughts away from this grim place I am in. That is why I'd like to ask, how is the situation in our farm? Have you been able to do all the work required to make sure our lands are producing wheat as it should? What about our livestock? What about anything I can imagine? The same question has puzzled me for now how many years? Because of this one darned war. I hope you're doing well. Same goes for Mia. Speaking of our daughter, is she alright? I'm just curious because I miss you two so much in this remorseless environment without mercy. We are living like cavemen. Everything is a struggle for survival. One thing though, which is making my mind feel lighter, is our general. Prince Atreus has walked a long way. He's leading this small group of fighters without even a reasonable amount of supplies. We have no food, no arrows, nor clean water. Despite it, he still stays vigilant and tries to make sure that we don't die. We have to fight during nights and hunt during days, and Atreus just doesn't run out of ideas. That is what I have to call determination. It is no wonder why Mia admires him. I've managed to cheer myself a little, thanks to writing this. Hopefully I can return home soon. Edward Creek Lake. Second letter to home. My dearest family, I'm already writing a second letter to you because I'm not able to keep my sanity up much longer, I believe. This is my only way to escape this hellscape. 2 nights have passed as killing tens of deaths, but they're not going to run out. Just the stink of our camp makes me tremble. If there's any ways to describe it, the smell of death after this experience could never be any more familiar. Atreus gave an order for us to try and burn these corpses so bacteria and other parasites wouldn't infect us. In these remarks, it perhaps worked. Unfortunate for us, the ash which comes from those burnt corpses just keeps falling everywhere, and now everything is covered in dust. I'm confident that this is the feeling of an afterlife. I can't wait to get out of here and finally return to your welcome company. Being a farmer is not easy, but at least it is something not like this. Night falls soon and the flesh-eating monsters will come back. Wish me luck. Edward Creek Lake. Prince Atreus demand you. I, Prince Atreus, demand you, my fine soldiers, to write yourself a diary about your experiences. It is crucial for me to know how you are doing about what we need. I am no longer letting you suffer the way one of us has already suffered. Give me each day report before nightfall. I will read all of them and take your ideas to consideration of leadership. Here is your first daily report. 16th of July, year 678. General, I don't know what to say to you. We suffer from the same problems and struggles like you. We are all hungry and we are all tired over sleepless nights. What do you exactly want? Crown Prince's note. I'm looking to know your mental condition, Mr. Creek Lake. Sir Lancelot had already collapsed and probably even attempted suicide. That is why he is under surveillance of Axel Rockford and Captain Squarewood. I wish to know how or can you hold on to your sanity, something which defines our fate. I won't let anyone else anymore to fall so low like Earl Lancelot did. Now, something more general knowledge. We are moving towards east tomorrow. This camp is already buried under ash and smoke. We also have our own mission to complete. And if we wish to find and regain our connections with the rest of the Order Empire's army, we have to keep moving where they are moving as well. I hope for the best for every one of us. Crown Prince Atreus. Third letter to home. My dear Antoinette, writing these letters is like taking a cup of beer after a disastrous or a sad event. I forget what is around me and I can just focus on the things which matter to me the most. General Atreus started a poll of this own kind. He asked about our condition and how we are doing in this valley. We have our writings to him before those zombies attack again. This morning, right before I began this letter, I got to see the prince's own replies and thoughts. It was kind of a surprise that he'd even let us see his own replies. Speaking of it, Atreus wished to know how can we withstand these times. He was quite shocked when he found out that Arthur Lancelot, one of our brothers in arms, attempted apparently a suicide. He was never really mentally stable after all and constantly on the verge of tantrums. He completely isolated himself from the rest of us and suddenly, I don't even know what drove him to such a state. Just the idea of seeing you two back home at least once more fills my heart and head with indescribable warmth and hope. Perhaps everyone in this world just don't share the same worldview. Now after these 2 days, I believe that I have found a way to live under this hellscape. As long as I know what I am fighting for, Nothing can bring me to give up. Edward Creeklake. The Journal of Anton Squarewood, General Atreus' second in command. Status report 10th of 6th, year 678. Battle fought. The Battle of the Eclipse Sanctum. Battle date 25th of 5th, year 678 to 8th of 6th, 678. Operation result. Sanctum captured and secured successfully. Casualties 27 killed in action. Specified letter to King Zarek. We, Army Group C, have been expecting our new food supplies. Not a single unit from my subordinates have eaten a proper meal in 2 days. It already starts to affect the unit's fighting morale and capabilities. This campaign has to slow down before we starve. If we keep going like this, the entire army will be defeated even without a battle. I beg you, my king, this unit needs rest and supplies. Your faithful and passionate officer, Anton Squarewood. Journal 10th of July, 678. I just finished my most recent report to my king. Even thinking gets difficult without a chance to rest or slow down. I'm not in the state of keep going anymore. I feel my hand twitching by simply writing this journal, not even mentioning the report. I'll come back when I no more things about King Zarek's decision. It seems my wish has been fulfilled. King Zarek ordered me to under his Crown Prince Atreus, while the rest of the Army Group C stays away from action. Even I got lucky, though. Atreus leads a small investigation group, which will be its own independent unit from the King Zarek's own forces. I'm still waiting a good meal, unfortunately. Journal 12th of July. We've entered now to the Valley of Endless Deaths. Very rough name, even for a location in Inamorta, if you ask me. We've successfully marched about 54 kilometers to the northeast and started to set a camp here. We'll be waiting for a courier. Also, I finally got my first proper meal in days. I still feel withered, but at the same time I don't have to wait for those supplies anymore. We have a full cart of them right now. Let's see how far we can get tomorrow. Merlin had stated from the campfire for us, then he'd be able to eat a warm food again. What a relief. 13th of July. This is accursed. There is no way to put it. It's a curse. I'm writing this now to bring in bright daylight, and none of us have slept a second. Our unit was ambushed by at least 10 of those damn deads. I didn't have the moral to keep going. Too tired and withered. I don't even remember killing a single one of them. One of those puny creatures even managed to scratch my arm and shoulders. For the condition of those decaying corpses, they are surprisingly strong. Luckily, only one of us were killed last night. However, it was not an easy loss, especially for the Prince Atreus. He seems distressed out of it. He just keeps staring at the corpse of the Archmage, and I even hear him mumbling along those lines of, "He was like a mentor I needed." I don't know what to think about it. I have known Merlin is important, but we have other matters to worry about. The courier has not yet arrived, and the atmosphere here is just really unnerving. But once again, those food supplies are my biggest concern. I'm not feeling well, and there has to be food for more than 25 other soldiers as well.
If we don't get soon any new supplies, then we are sure doomed. Status report, 14th of July. Journal, 15th of July. With the very little strength I have left now, I want to thank you, Atreus. I see now why Zarek made you the heir for the crown of the Order Empire. You realize what we need. You managed to get us a hunting group for berries and other vegetables from this soil. Even when they aren't the most nutritious food, I can't complain. Also, I thank you enough for your sympathy. I really needed some rest. And my fighting capabilities are not so shabby either anymore. Thanks for allowing me to stay in the back lines. It's truly a blessing. About Sir Lancelot, I cannot think another way how we could have handled his situation. He certainly needs help and support, but I am not the right one to do it. Forgive me. I let you down, my king. I'm just worried about those couriers and what happens if we are forgotten here, while one of my brothers in arms are going to through something I've never even thought of. This may be my farewell. 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 Anton. Atreus' daily reports. This is Alexander Rockford, the companion of Anton Squarewood. He, was only distant for the whole time. Anton and I were looking after Earl Lancelot until Captain Squarewood picked up his logbook. There he started to write something, but his hands moved inefficiently, and he was certainly not doing well. Since the second night spent here, he just laid on the ground, only grunting or sighing. I don't know what to do with it, so I let him be. It was only time until the lunch bell rang. The only time which made him show a hint of joy. It didn't spark any reaction with him. It was odd until I glanced over him and recognized he was not even breathing. After some examination of his journals, it's safe to assume that he died from malnutrition. My wish to you, Prince Atreus, is for not to take this personally. There wasn't much you could done to prevent this. It is the couriers and suppliers' fault not coming to help us, not yours. We could have saved Merlin and Lancelot, but we just have to keep going. I have faith in you, my general. You should too. Alexander Rockford.
Emergency meeting. Meeting held in 14th of July, 678. Subject: King Zarek under Chaos Empire's captive. Meeting hosted by Royal Mage Zilaros. Status: next meeting will be held in 15th of July. Log of Marshal Eric Malmsted. 14th of July. The Empire's emergency meeting. Unbelievable but true. King Zarek indeed is away from us. Royal Mage Zilaros had taken his place today, but something is off here. I don't know exactly why. Zilaros has changed. He, through the entirety of the meeting, was completely calm, collected, and calculative. It was like he had to make sure that his meeting was about one thing and one thing only. I wasn't there when my king was captured, but I didn't see any sort of reaction from the other officers from today's meeting, especially Zilaros, the king's brother out of all. He didn't even present any shock or sorrow. Weren't we defeated there after all? Or is it there something that they are trying to hide from public? Whatever it is, it may not be sweet. If only this boy would be in the royal guard, I would know about it as well. Something is indeed off. Not with Zilaros or our operation. I feel like someone else entirely is missing. I'm just too tired to think about it right now. The whole day was spent on wondering what we should do next and how we react after the defeat in the valley. Although weirdly enough, Zilaros and some other members of the Royal Guard won't even consider it as a defeat. They call it Zarek's defeat, not the Empire's defeat. I don't exactly see why. Members of the Royal Guard, tens of special operatives from Shade, and those 250 reserves. Not to mention even the seasoned veterans out of all of them. All of them thrown in the pit of death overnight, and the hate of authority won't even make a gesture of it. This marshal now needs to rest. Perhaps tomorrow will present the answers I want. 15th of July. It was today decided that a counterattack must be performed if we wish to keep going. At least that was how Zilaros saw it. I'm not sure anymore. Should we just let the valley be? Zarek may be still there, but if Chaos holds him captive, we should obviously save him from there. However, from the nature of Zilaros, it is obvious that we are not here to save our king. Wasn't it because of the map that we even attacked the valley in question? Perhaps whatever is inside lures Zilaros there, like it did with Zarek. What if I try to catch it even before Zili does? I've been just standing in these pesky sidelines while my entire just suffered a massive defeat. Talk about being ashamed. Emergency meeting held in 15th of July. Subject: King Zarek's under Chaos Empire's captive. Meeting held by Royal Mage Zilaros. Conclusion: Royal Mage Zilaros shall take matters into his own hands and launch a counterattack with the help of his personal lifeguard battalion from the Royal Guard. 16th of July. Now when Zilaros entered the valley, this time with even bigger army, I finally had time to recollect some events. Firstly, the attack. Isn't it odd that Zilaros didn't take any other officers with him, other than his own two blindly obedient pets from the Royal Guard, specially ordered to protect him? Why wasn't I even considered? Here goes my chance of entering the Royal Guard. Actually, he made it evidently clear that officers not taken with him have to stay away from that valley and only step in if help is specifically called. He sure is up to something. Speaking of our nobility, I finally realized what we were missing. This has to be some sort of game Zili is playing. Wasn't Atreus the chosen heir to the throne sent into the valley as well? We know that Zarek is gone, but what about him? He, the Crown Prince, was never even mentioned during our two meetings with the other officers and Zilaros himself. We may not know for certain if he still is alive there, but I'm not going to let him get killed as well. After all, I still have two divisions scattered around. Some troops taken with Zili, of course, but I still have resources and manpower to act. This field marshal saw rally his troops and find the lost prince. Just imagine the recognition I could have after such an achievement. No time to waste. Golori and the Royal Guard, here I come. Call to arms. My fearless and ever-loyal members of 5th Division of Order. We've been sidelined by our greedy Royal Archmage Zilaros, but they, the Royal Guard and other members of the Order Army, have started their own assault towards this so-called Valley of the Endless Deads. We've been forgotten and our talent disrespected, until I realized that Zilaros has forgotten the presence of his Crown Prince. The throne's heir has been abandoned to this doom of valley, and lacks in any sort of resources to survive. I, Eric Malmsted, will take the responsibility to track and save him from there. Those who will come along will be promoted for sure, such as I will. This feat needs every single one of us, and glory awaits. Now pick your forever faithful weapons and charge towards the vile troops of chaos. Our group will unite in a span of 2 days. If you are late or miss out on them, you've missed your purpose. Your ever ambitious and powerful Field Marshal Eric Momstead. This is a recollection of all the nights spent here with my troops. This is an attempt to gain an understanding of the events we are in. Here I will also log all my noteworthy reports starting from the 13th of July. First night. It is difficult to determine which night spent here is the first one, but I begin to count from the loss of Archmage Merlin. It counts as my biggest failure. I let my only true teacher and mentor down. Blimey me. We entered the Valley of Endless Deaths under Merlin's direction. We moved towards north with few kilometers away from Father King Zarek's army. Not so surprisingly, we were ambushed by deaths, as the valley's name suggests. Merlin was overwhelmed by those impudent beings, and so was eaten alive. Hysteria struck to my units after the realization of the situation we are in. In these desperate seconds, we just managed to form our front lines together and stop the ambush. At this point, I was lost. I lost my only source of guidance, and the Empire lost its greatest magician. Thank the tip of my spear, if I'm even qualified to use that phrase, that no one else was lost yet that night. Also, another thing I have to thank is that I didn't give up, and realized what was truly important. Second night. We lost our second personnel today as well. This time he was Captain Squarewood. I heard about his death from Alexander Rockford, who wrote about it in Anton's daily journal. It's no wonder why Captain Squarewood got in such a state of hunger when thinking about it afterwards. But at the moment, it felt impossible. Despite our weak state of nutrition, I thought we still got right amount of food to keep us alive. Guess that dreamscape only in my head had to shatter as well. However, this is not even the end of all the dramatic events today. We were waiting news orders from my father and supplies, but they never came. The courier, no supplies, no reinforcements, nothing left to help us. This was the day when we were left all alone. Everyone was still hopeful and optimistic in this day, until night started to get closer and closer. The help we never managed to get The help we never got managed to open all of our eyes. Unfortunately, it happened during the worst possible moment. When our food strength and time is tight, we need one thing more than ever, which is fighting morale. Something that was destroyed during today because of the problems listed before. We survived from the second night without casualties, because this time we were prepared. However, now our camp was surrounded by decaying corpses which caused a stink. This is not only obnoxious on its own, but it causes all kinds of bacteria to spread. If someone gets wounded here, his flesh will sure get infected or something. The solution I came with was to try and burn all those corpses. It worked, but also didn't. Everyone complained about the ash which covered our camp in seconds. Also, we lost one of our tents in accident which occurred. Thankfully, we still have enough shelter for everyone, even though space is very tight. Third night. From now on, we had to start gathering the resources and food required on our own here. Fortunately, nature blossoms here for some reason. It's even better than It's even better than anywhere in Inamorta. Maybe it's because of the lack of residents collecting nature's products, or where do I know? This day presented me a clear divide in my mood. I didn't realize it yet back, because I was too stuck on the loss of Archmage Merlin. Now that new information is now at my awareness, I believe that my units have two ways to sustain their hopes and sanity. For example, Edward Creed Lake. He has been writing letters the entirety of the time, and is certainly the most optimistic personnel under my service. My greatest support and wishes for him in the future. It's about my confrontation with Arthur Lancelot. The lead up to this confrontation with hell was in itself scary and depressing. Speaking of my personnel, we suffered our second loss of a unit today right before the Deaths attacked. He's no other than Arthur Lancelot. For some reason he had tear his wrists open. He even said to test was the legend about them being cut fatal enough to kill. This was a wake-up call I needed. I figured out before how to keep ourselves fed alive, but being a leader is more than just that. This time, I had to figure out how to support and inspire my personnel in a way which can get us all out of this damn curse of a valley. Fortnight. About the daily journals I started now. Today results seem pretty harmless. No one yet reports over mental health issues or anything. Although outside those reports, I recognize a pattern which ties each survivor together. They all have hopes and dreams which to fulfill. Whether it's army, homeland, family, or their own profession, a dream where they can return from the battlefield and finally get back to what gives them a reason to fight. I don't know about it, but something feels odd. This was not how anyone raised me or my siblings during our days as children. We weren't speaking about it. Maybe I should just try to recall it. That one phrase went by Merlin. What it was. One final thing we did during the day was to move our camp because of the environmental problems. Also, the food here is running low, so that settles it. Maybe we can find and reclaim connection with the rest of the army too. If we just happen to find them. Ran through my head during the entire day. However, after the 5th night spent here, the matters only got worse. 5th night. The last night spent on this valley got to be the roughest. We got caught by another storm before our departure. This time even stronger than the one during the first night. This made it sure that none of us were in the state of willing to fight. But those deaths won't stop coming. This time, while some of my troops were still carrying their tents, riders attacked them and causing both men to get injured. Also, a pounder got on the way and bite me. Actually, I don't even remember any of us surviving without a wound or two. Even more shocking, one of our Spartans, Hans Mason, got badly injured by his arm, but because of his fear of sharing the same fate with the Slank Scout, he cut the entire arm of his chest to get rid of the bite marks in him. It was hard to watch as he did it like an animal trying to break free from predator's claws. He was so restless and fearful. His screams echoed far in the woods and it sounded horrible. We are all now injured, demoralized and hungry. Nothing seems to help us, not anymore. We moved today only about 15 kilometers during the whole day, which doesn't really impress. If anyone sees my notes after I'm gone, please make sure that no one has to go through something like this. Even for a war, this is utterly disgusting and psychologically devastating. At least after the most taxing battle we've encountered so far. Crown Prince of the Order Empire and the leader of the Spartans, Atreus. B.S. Writing that title just doesn't add up. Why? My father wished me to become the king of the empire after his departure. Why not to choose Kaiju? She was always the one who supported and inspired me and our siblings. She was a true big sister, not just for me, but for the entirety of Inamorta. What about Thera? No one has the capacity for such an understanding of compassion and emotions like she does. She never let anyone down and always knew how and when to comfort others. If any one of us could have been considered a proletariat queen, it would have been her. Or Icaron, a brilliant mechanical genius with indescribable creativity and vision. If someone could have been the best reformer of the Empire, it would have been him. Shade, the most sly, relentless, and subtle tactician I can think of. She would have been perfect for forming a network a queen must have to maintain her status. Even Xyphos, the most diligent and passionate person I know. Someone who would work for nights and days to find a solution for each and one problem the Empire has. I'm just a prince whose name is Atreus. What could I make to make myself stand out? Collapses on the notes while crying in disbelief. July 17th. I'm thankful for letting me enter the front lines again. I would have lost my sanity if I wouldn't have gotten a reminder how good I am at fighting. Even though every one of us got overwhelmed by those darned pouncers. Fortunate enough, they are very inefficient at killing their prey. That still does not mean we are safe. After all, we are still somewhat infected right now. Those filthy undead monsters just keep spreading their own poison until everything is under their influence. It's a shame and disgrace that they even can walk on this earth. Perhaps we were destined to get lost here in their reign. It does wonders to a man when he's taken away from the sphere of unimaginative and cowardly children. Speaking of him, the Earl is still fine, and his new protector even stated that he is finally getting back to normal. Thanks to his stunt, though, his hands don't work properly anymore. He can even write understandable text. Kind of amusing, actually. However, if it's true that Sir Lancelot actually has gotten his sanity back, I'd feel guilty if I didn't even try to help with it. Because he certainly needs it. Also, watching over him was my responsibility. After Field Surgeon Smith inspected my scratches and swellings, he told me that it would be better if he doesn't cut us anymore. I haven't even thought of it, actually. Our blades are getting rusty and blunt. So does the doctor's knives. He told me that after cutting Edward's cow's flesh, he had to stop using his old and unusable blades. This means that next time we are getting our bodies poisoned or bitten, there's no way to get rid of the rotten parts. Thinking about it, it does appear that we are doomed. But trying to stay positive, our empire won't fall just because of our deaths, right? Alex Rockford. Atreus' notes. This means we have to be careful even at daytime. Nikander Pilt's condition already bothered me. But it is good to know that at least one of us has started to recover. It is good to hear that you are doing better today. All we can do now is help our brothers in arms. Something I've realized that helps is to write to your close ones. Edward Creekleg has been doing it since the first night we've been here, and he's the most positive and calmest person I can think of out of our group. Maybe trying to connect with them would help you, my friend. Crown Prince Atreus. You were right about one thing, my general. I spoke with Lancelot once again, and he's doing certainly better. It is interesting how his mood swings so easily. He appears to be all right now and even apologized to me after we spoke again. He was just so worried and stressed out over our survival. However, after he found out that we are doing quite well here, his head started to get back together after some time. Sir Lancelot even claimed that he will join the fight tonight. He is still a bit paranoid and overreactive, but who wouldn't be after everything that has happened here? Especially when nighttime is closing. I started to wonder a little about Nikander, who you mentioned. I see why you set him under surveillance as well. The boy is just growling and complaining about who knows. especially looking at its eyes. They look empty and lifeless. I don't know other ways to describe it. I know it sounds over the top, but this glance looks exactly like they belong to a dead. Not to even mention the way he walks and moves. It looks so flimsy and there's no power behind it. Gotta keep an eye on him. Alex Rockford. P.S. For every one of our surprise, a scout had just appeared. I don't know what time it is. I can't read the sun like a clock, but night is close to be sure. The scout claimed to be under Field Marshal Eric Malmsted, who's been looking for us for a while now. This is sure something to be happy about. We were promised food, reinforcements, new weapons to fight with. The scout after a while left, but every single one of us knows that this will be the saving grace we've been looking for. The reason why I'm writing this to you, Crown Prince Atreus, is because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Merlin left you big boots to fill. But thanks to you your understanding and astute mind, you learned how to lead and how to be the face of your army. You've achieved something very few generals can. Form a proper emotional, unwavering and mutual respect between you and your subordinates. If it wasn't for the journals, where I got to unload my heart and head, none of us could have even managed to hold on to their sanity. You are a brave and fierce man, and I finally understand why Zarek wished you to be the heir for his throne. 16th of July. I am sure looking forward to moving away from this spot. There is nothing in here to keep me staying here. Glad to see that you understand. This boy really needs a change of scape. After I've been bombarded by tragedies, it is relaxing to leave this environment behind. The things Lancelot said, they were something so pessimistic and desperate. Everything he said was about how horrible our situation is, and how he's hurt. The Earl is not fine, I knew it before we set our foot to this valley, but he is just outright self-destructive and negative man-child who's willing to give up on everything just to run away responsibility. I don't even understand how he still is a noble, or how is his lands under still control. I am telling this because this world we were starting to get under my skin. I almost feel like I'm giving up even though I should not. It is really nerve-wracking. Can you please consider changing me to the front lines and put someone else to protect the Earl? He's just making me so stressed and apathetic right now. I need help. Alexander Rockford. I see your point. Maybe I can find a replacement for you. I know the Earl is not doing well, but there is no ways to support his condition. The only one who can realistically help is the Earl himself, Crown Prince Atreus. Even without smoke and death stinking to my nose, I still feel like nausea and fever is killing me. I'm starving, but I don't want to eat. I feel like I have to vomit just after a single berry. Also my voice. I don't know. Is it just because of my hunger or what? But my voice is getting weaker and hazier. I can't keep this up. My wounds have swelled and they hurt even more than during the night. Fever just gets stronger. Don't let me. Handwriting becomes so unclear it is impossible to tell what he tried to write. Nikander Pitt. You'll be sent under surveillance as well. You are not in the right condition. Crown Prince Atreus. P.S. Who signed this? It is evident that this was not signed by Nikander himself. Can't we stop here for a moment? My legs are breaking down because of this. First marching and carrying my tent around, then fighting against deaths and marching again. I beg you, my general, we should just stay here and try bury those corpses if their sting gets too bad. Humbly requesting, Julian Kendall. Don't fear, Julian. I understand that you are exhausted. So am I. It seems that we have to set our camp back up. We're not going to find help anytime soon. That is obvious. However, we cannot let ourselves fall into despair. Your lives outside this valley call for us. We are needed elsewhere, and so we have to get away from here. Crown Prince Atreus. Stay strong, Atreus. We have been here almost a week and our group is still sticking together and we are still alive. That is something which makes me comfortable enough. I just wrote again to my family and it really helps. Fieldston Smith has been busy right now with his works and it speaks for itself. The flesh in my leg is getting infected and weak. Luckily our surgeon managed to cut it away and I should be safe now. My right calf does not move anymore, but I heard that Prince and engineer Icaron has something up his sleeve to make up for it. All this to say that I'm fine. Edward Creek Lake. It is admirable how you can keep yourself together, Edward. However, we are far from united. Starvation has started to get cause arguing between our lines, and even worse, exhaustion and fear has driven my troops to start destructive behavior. Also, wounds and other scratches on our surgeon has not been able to heal, are now getting rotten, and so is our morale. Maybe a time will come when we have to kill each other to save ourselves, but not today. We just have to keep fighting and stand this hardship. All I care for now is to ensure that the time I mentioned won't occur. Even if it will, we have to get out of here before it does. Crown Prince Atreus. July 15th. Unexpected, but at the same time completely expected. Field Marshal Eric Malmsted is once again trying to act for his own selfish ambitions. What else his life as an officer has been. He ordered me to search for the Valley of Endless Deaths, while doing his bidding. I was not even ordered to follow Royal Mage Silaros, but to find and establish communications with Atreus, the Crown Prince himself. I don't know about this. The valley is really eerie and vicious place as far as I am concerned. Also, do we know if Atreus and his crew are even still alive? They've been missing for how long? How many days without food, without supplies, while those flesh-seeking creatures called deaths are hunting them down. However, an order is an order, and someone as reckless as Devil May Care and stubborn Malmsted. I had no choice but to venture into those creepy woods with my faithful Riptor. 16th of July. After about night wandering this place without any hints of Atreus, I almost got desperate and decided to give up until a pile of ash greeted me and my companion. This was something I sure did not leave unnoticed, and kept going on for a while. Sadly, my pet had to take a break, so did I with her. I was thinking about whatever I was until this night caught me off guard, and so did the deaths. Lucky for me and Brenda, there weren't many of them, so we took them down in minutes. Guest will go on, and maybe we can find exactly what I think is that left those ashes here. 17th of July. I found it. I found them. I found the Prince Atreus and his small legion. They were all battened-hearted and otherwise very rough. However, they are still alive, and the joy they expressed about my arrival was indeed wholesome and heartwarming. Atreus gave me one letter which I expected to be called for help. I didn't read it yet, but Marshal Momset shall take the glory for it. He sure is happy for these results. For his own career, obviously. One faithful dead walks through the dark, shadowy, ominous, and vicious woods located in the Valley of Endless Deaths. This dead, like every single one of those who've been sent before to die, was after Prince Atreus and the crew under his leadership. This time, after some time spent treasure hunting, Marrow-Kai had found himself an old relic, a mask with grey outlook, and it was attached to its user's face by hooks which grappled to its user. It was unclear what was this mask's purpose until Marrow-Kai found out that it was sensible to any type of magic or otherwise something supernatural. This discovery was groundbreaking because it made things such as telepathy between Marrow-Kai and his mortal beings who were not survived by the hatred of chaos magic. Marrow-Kai had been stalking anyone who had stepped into the lands where some sort of undead pack was living to hunt more flesh to their endless appetite. Kai had a psychological link between every single one of his deaths because of the revitalizing chaos magic casted on them. This link enabled each death to be controlled remotely, individually or by groups. Kai also had access to their eyes, which allowed him to see all the events in the field right before himself. This was exactly what Kai had been doing since the moment his deaths found King Zarek and trapped his son to the valley. It was like candy and cocoa into the Dark Lord of the Dead. His twisted mind seeing Atreus and his subordinates turn into haggard, weak, flimsy, starving strawmen was perfect. Sooner or later, Deaths would finally deal the final blow to his enemies and make an end to their never-ending struggle. This night was just another defeat and 40 more lost deaths amongst the time, but it meant nothing for Marrow-Kai. Inamorta was not running out of corpses as long as the war kept raging. Besides, killing all of those Order Empire survivors was not the goal. Another defeat after the night meant only a new day to rally new pack of deaths and prepare a new strike. Marrow-Kai's stream of thought was soon caught by a Juggernaut who entered the sanctum, which Kai had made his own HQ of sorts. Marrow-Kai, my Dark Lord, I am sure you are as well aware, but your uncle Zilaros, the royal mage, has gotten the Empire under control, and now they have made their way through the valley. I don't even know what they are doing, but they're certainly up to no good. The officer of darkness expressed his concern to his overlord. What is it now? I have no time to waste on them, but I'll surely use my most recent special unit I found. Zillaros would be a perfect victim for it, Kai replied confidently. However, his tone showed slight irritation because of something, to which his follower responded. Yes, it would be. Speaking of your royal family, King Zarek is now imprisoned and waiting his own judgment. You may do as you please with him. After those words were said, Marrow-Kai snapped out of anger and his hands and eyes started to glow red. His face, unable to emote, still conveyed clear frustration and conclusion. He started to gesture something with his powerless and otherwise flimsy arms to the air, and he gave a temper tantrum, which was not expressed even the first time. I have no connection to them. They are not my family. Mother is the only one, the only family member of mine. After this outburst, Marrow-Kai turned around to look at his sanctum. The sanctum itself had the cobra statues and a venom pool under them. Before the pool was a rock plate where Kai was often meditating or communicating with his debts. This time he was not doing that. Kai started to gesture with his hands towards one of the cobra statues, which had its mouth open. After some struggle, Marukai made his way to it and took something fragile and concrete in his arms. It was the mummified, dried and withered head of no other than Queen Medusa, the most valuable treasure Marukai had acquired during his reign. No matter how hard he tried, no matter how many times he lifted Medusa's head into his own arms, how many times he tried to wake the one he wielded as a teacher and as a mother, it was not enough. The power of Queen Medusa had revitalized Marukai and made him into the strongest sorcerer ever to be found from Inamorta. But the revival of Queen of Chaos herself was just so out of reach. No matter how powerful Marukai became and gained new relics and sacred artifacts, it was never enough. Not to bring back someone as powerful and imposing as Queen Medusa of Chaos. For one of the most rare instances, Kai felt like his own piece of living flesh. His heart was pumping again when the head of his mistress was in his cold but passionate hug. This amount of emotional distress was enough to shatter the Dark Lord and made him lose all of his powers in a blink of an eye. His eyes and arms lost their glow, and any sign of life suddenly disappeared from that Grim Reaper of Inamorta. Kai collapsed to the sanctum, almost losing his consciousness. Sorrow, something completely unheard for the living skeleton, had pierced him.
There was nothing he could do, just to get his only source of happiness and hope of a family he could accept back. The Juggernaut, after looking at the emotional meltdown of Marukai, took his helmet off to show respect and honor to his overlord, but also to his former queen. The knight kneeled in front of the sanctum where Kai was still gathering himself together and said, "Marukai, my dark lord, I have no doubt that you will become powerful enough to revive our queen. After all, we have made ourselves already new weapons and elements, new monsters, and our latest invention in the workshop, the new monstrous bombers. Medusa would be proud of your work, Marukai. Besides, we do have a plan to commit. I will gather up the leftovers of our last reserves and launch an attack at Silaros. Also, Alpha Eclipso Militia has now grown into fighting age. She will be with me in the following confrontation. Proceed with your own action and catch the symbolic face of the Empire." When this act of comfort was over, and Marukai had his thoughts shift from Medusa to Atreus, flash of blood red and bright light came from his mouth and eyes, which enlightened the overlord of darkness back to an awakened state. Kai let out a scream of pain and purest hatred he had ever shown. This gave him the energy to stand up again and finish his conversation with his subordinate. "Actually, I will take the stone giant. Don't cry, Faramund. The rest of the toys will be at your disposal. However, I have my own mission to fulfill." Faramund, the Juggernaut, nodded in agreement and left the sanctum. He knew everything he wished to know and informed Marukai of his recent events on the field. The Chaos Empire was taking its last possible breaths if no action was taken, and this was the perfect moment to act. When Marukai was finally left alone, he had time to inspect the Valley of Endless Deaths again. Aside from Zilarus and Atreus, a new battle group had started to emerge for the valley's outskirts. It would mean bad news for everyone, but not for Marukai. The Valley of Endless Deaths was his playground, and anyone who dared to step in there played according to his rules. How nice and convenient it was that the Order Empire free willingly sent their king, crown prince, and most skilled and experienced troops right to be swallowed by that void of death Kai himself had full control over. After this new battle group was set to rescue Atreus, they'd only meet their fate and own doom with the prince himself. Kill every one of them. However, I'd wish to get Atreus to Gargo's keep, alive if possible, was Marokai's order to his puppets in the Valley of Endless States. It was delightful for Marokai. He got to toy with the person he viewed as his greatest enemy. Each night, he got another view of this condition. Each night gave him another chance to torment his enemies, slowly and painfully to death. It was indeed a gift to relish.
This is Field Sergeant Smith, writing for Arthur Lancelot. This morning we encountered yet another loss of a personnel, this time being Nicander Pilt and Hans Mason. Mr. Pilt, as you may be aware of, presented very odd and brain-dead behavior, if I, as a doctor, am concerned. He had completely isolated himself from anyone for about 2 days after his injury. His whole chest was scratched open, and he had bite marks all over his arms. Also, parts of his bones from his chest were broken in two and otherwise out of their place. All of his wounds were swelled and green because of the infection the dead spread. Because of this infection and my inability to cure or treat it in any way, it devoured poor Nicander, and it made him one of those deads. He was held in the same tent as Hans Mason was, man who had lost an entire limb a few nights earlier, and it seems that they had quite a fight in my infirmary. Undead Nicander had won their fight, and we, Lancelot and Smith, found Mr. Pilt eating flesh of his own companion, like a pack of wolves eating an innocent livestock. Parts of Mason's organs were everywhere, thrown around the tent, and Pilt just kept eating his... It's prey like a maniac. In some sick twisted way, Pilt had opened the leg of Mr. Mason, which caused Hans to die in the loss of blood. Mason's quads were torn off. Pilt was eating them, of course. The reason why I am writing this, especially for Earl Lancelot, is because he saw what I saw with him, and it was Arthur's sword which ended the misery of departed Nicander Pilt. What we witnessed was surely atrocious, but it was clear that Arthur shows heavy signs of remorse about killing Nicander. I didn't see any other ways to fix the lost cause, but who'd want to kill their own friends? Especially because Earl Lancelot had just recovered from the trauma of his first nights, thanks to all of us who supported him. About my experiences, I have failed. It is all thanks to my academical pride of a doctor. I thought that even without my scalpels and knives, I could have still found a way to treat Nicander in some way instead of letting him out of his misery. If it wasn't for me, Hans would still be alive, and this farce wouldn't have caused any hysteria in this camp. I'm sorry, my general, for letting you down. Elliot Smith. Haven't you heard of the event where Nicander turned into dead and killed one of our men? I have, and this caused me to fear even more. Pilt was completely emotionless and passionless slate whose body has had no energy whatsoever. I feel like I've been just like him for a while now. I'm tired, wounded, and I just can't keep going on anymore. If I can just save myself, I'll do it. I have no one to keep fighting for other than my job that I hate. I have grown to hate everything in this realm. Just let me say my farewell. Julian Kennel. You won't believe what I witnessed today, my general. I was fulfilling my appointed task of collecting berries and fruits, that could be from our environment. Suddenly, right from the bushes, a panther attacked me and got a bite on my neck. After this short attack, it, as fast as it arrived, left the scene. The wound sure hurts, and I was bleeding quite a lot. But despite the bite landing on a very soft spot, I didn't recognize anything weird about myself yet. But some other soldiers told me that the wound I got was glowing some red light. I didn't believe it at all. I thought they just tried to scare me, but I'm not sure anymore. I started to write this because my senses have started to act up. I hear constant whispering and laughter echoing in my ears. I have also recognized my arms and legs twitching and spasms against my will. Whenever those happens, I feel like I have no energy, all of a sudden. A pint of dirt and mud starts to appear on the roads. Tell me it'll be over soon. Edward Creek Lake. I feel like yesterday's events didn't even happen, as I'm writing this right now. Before sleep and lunchtime. The promised help still has not arrived. And to be honest, after hearing what happened to Nick and the Pilt and Hans Mason, my paranoia just keeps getting stronger. Also, most calmest member of us, Mr. Creeklake, has now started to show signs of a breakdown. None of us has slept properly for a week now. Food is constantly an issue and fatigue in general is tearing me apart. Our brothers in arms start to turn into those same deaths we've been fighting for so long, and this tension will never be resolved. May the tip of my blade save me. It's the only thing I can trust anymore. Alex Rockford. 9th of July. Honorable Atreus. I'd like to talk with you in person about your hardships. I know it has not been easy for you, and I'd wish to help. I believe that we really need some time spent face to face with you. Edward Creeklake. What a saving grace. After this one hell of a night we got our long-awaited backup. Finally, we get a chance to enjoy a proper meal with some diversity to the food choices. These same berries just keeps getting out of my mouth and ears. I also got to see my fellow mercenaries again. I feel like a big and heavy rock has been lifted from my shoulders. We aren't alone anymore, and finally, all of us can get our nights free from fighting. At least, that is what I wish. I'm just so glad. There is so many ways to describe it to you, Sir Atreus. With Eric Malmsted being in charge, you can enjoy your own free time as well, while our new reinforcements do the work we've been doing for a week now. We wouldn't have made this far without you, that's for sure, Sir Atreus. I wonder how someone like you could ever be even considered as a leader, not to mention what you will inherit. However, after seeing these trials, where you and all of your abilities have been forged in fire, all of my doubts have just disappeared. The crown of Inamorta surely has a successor in line, a great one. Sincerely hoping you the best what we can get out of this accursed location. Albert Fleming. Incredible how we made such a stunt. You sure know who I'm talking about, Sir Atreus. Just when I thought that we were going to be saved and finally everyone could go back to normal again. Perhaps the hellscape is just completely normal. How else are our new comrades going to react to this? Will they forbid the use of fire completely? I wouldn't be surprised after what the damned Carawander did. He sure was a weak link, but even the other weak links recovered from their self-destructive behavior. Shame on him! Tobias Spurge. 20th of July. Even after a proper sleeping period, I feel like the night was just as stressful and unnerving. I'm still under the same distress before. The nights previously spent here, I saw a dream out of it.
it felt so real as well. In that darn dream, we were all devoured by risers and who just kept coming, and they ate us all alive. The only way out I saw was that I'd kill myself. It was horrible. Even eating felt hard. Given the time, my stomach has been completely empty. I won't even want to get full. I tried to eat my delicious warm meal, but I felt full already after just 2 pieces. I feel weak and starving, but I don't want to eat. What a diabolical cycle. About the rest of the day, it was all right. When I got to speak with someone not as insane as we are, I felt that my paranoia started to slowly fade. I'm still afraid, and peeking over my shoulder just comes out of a reflex, but I still feel better. I am sure everyone else feels the same. Tobias Spurge, Crown Princess Notes. You've been a very brave man, Tobias. You didn't give up when the dark desire to escape hit you. You stood firm on your ground, and I am proud of it. Stay soon, we will find a way out of here. Perhaps even tomorrow. Crown Prince Atreus.
18th of July. During this day, everything went wrong. 2 of my soldiers were lost because of my own blindness. I let Pill transform into a heartless monster who killed one of our seasoned veterans. Even when everything looked so bright again, something like this could happen and ruin all the good mood we had. We moved today again a few miles eastward, like I explained to the courier who found us, but it was no use. With a group this exhausted while carrying tents and weapons, it's almost an impossibility. Only after 4 or 5 pitiful kilometers we had to stop down our tracks. At least now the stink of corpses won't be a problem now. I won't even start on the environment and how hard it is for someone to walk here. Everyone keeps shouting that they have seen a dead lurking in the shadows or something like that. They are simply too worried and tired to keep going like this. After we set our camp, the last of our saved food was used there. Despite the lunch at evening being the last time we can have a social interactions, everyone just stayed to their bowls and waited the night to fall. Thanks to this, all of us look like we're insane. After all, patience is called a virtue, so I wouldn't give up yet. Help is on its way, and we just had to wait until it arrives. 19th of July. I have nothing left on me anymore. I note my orders of this day and go back to sleep or whatever I can. I didn't even have the capacity to answer my soldiers' reports. Firstly, I sent Edward Creek Lake under surveillance. He reported of himself being attacked, and because of it, his muscles started to cramp and twitch. Also, another person told me that Edward complained of his vision disappearing at times. Having read through his report, he also told me that a voice began to echo in his head time to time. Under surveillance, he described it as some sort of muffling. He also had a voice of normal person, but he couldn't tell apart any words. Nevertheless, he's not okay, and has to stay away from the field. His twitches and spasms looked like outright unnatural and terrible. His joints began to crackle, and when he got a spasm, and he even fell to the ground at one point, without any signs of strength left in him. Everything else today was pretty normal until the evening. I should have reacted to this sooner, at least. After the long-awaited reinforcements provided by Marshal Malmstead, I believed everyone to be happy and delighted. We welcomed our new fighters in our minds, and began to prepare our first proper meal in days. I ordered Julia and Kennel to light up the fire, and so he did. However, the trick he pulled after that was beyond depressing. He even told to me in one of his reports that he will say his farewells. I should have recognized that, but I didn't realize what he meant by that. The poor boy, in front of every one of us, hopped into the flames and he ignited it, and I'll let you, whoever is reading this journal, guess the rest. Just when we thought that this day we'd find a spark of hope, we almost did. As Malmsted put it, desperate people will separate themselves from they who will believe that they'll survive. How ironic. There is no other way for me to escape the responsibility of my unit's demolished morale. Everything could have gone so much better if I'd realized it sooner. It is just a result of everything going wrong. Lack of sleep, paranoia, starvation, self-destructive people and constant violence. Who wouldn't go insane when all of these curses confront you at the same time?
Crown Prince Atreus. Soon after Atreus heard someone entering his tent, the young prince turned around to see no other than the field marshal himself. Atreus didn't know how he should take this visit, but when Eric presented himself and gave his usual greetings, Atreus guessed immediately where he was going to. Good evening, Prince. How was our performance when we arrived? If it wasn't for me, you would not have survived. Eric gestured in a very self-important manner. Atreus turned to the marshal's side and let out an annoyed groan before replying. That is indeed great. Great for you, Sir Malmsted, I guess. Please mind explaining what has been going on since we got lost in the middle of these woods. Where's the rest of the front lines right now? Eric wondered for a while how he should answer to that question. How can he form his words in a way that won't enrage the prince too much? What if he tell the whole story for him and just hope Atreus wouldn't feel completely abandoned? How about Eric's own part in the story? He didn't launch the attack to save the crown prince. It was just truth made to boost his own career. As the candles inside Atreus' tent kept flickering and Eric wondering, he finally decided to speak up. I'm sorry to bring this to you so abruptly, but your father has been captured. It all happened presumably during the same night you got stuck in here. After the demolishing act, your uncle Silros took control over the empire, and it seems that he simply kept going on with the campaign King Zarek launched years prior. Unbelievable. Atreus let out of his mouth while Eric kept explaining the context of his situation. Also, oddly enough, Zilros just seemingly forgot or purposefully left you behind. Everyone else was watching it right through their fingers, while I rallied my troops and came here to get you back. I'm sorry for what has been going on. Atreus kept looking at the marshal in front of him without a word. After a few seconds, a breakdown hit the prince, who had to support his head with his hands. He then placed his right arm in his forehead and leaned back at his chair. Atreus looked so forlorn and beaten down. As Eric kept watching him, he realized that maybe the prince needed more time to breathe. News of losing his father were surely pretty dramatic. Cheer up, Prince. Tomorrow we'll get you out of here and make Silros pay for his neglect. All of those tales your men keep telling about your bravery and growth, that is already enough to make you a legend. The glory you fought for yourself is something everyone should aim for. At least I learned that it's never too late to pick up the pace. You just had to find the soul. You just had to find the soldier within you.
Eric tried to lighten up the atmosphere inside the tent. Atreus didn't look quite amused, nor was he doing any better right now. The prince let out one last sigh before expressing his own opinion to Malmsted. I need a lot more time. What if we talk about tomorrow again? Malmsted nodded with respect as he returned away and left the tent. Before he could do that, Atreus, out of sheer curiosity, asked one more thing before Eric would leave. You've been talking about glory and warriors. Please tell me, why do soldiers even fight to begin with? I've been wondering about this for a while now, and I believe that this week has finally presented me the answer I want. And it ain't for a personal glory. That is what I know. Eric looked confused, and Atreus sensed it, even when he didn't even see the man's face. Eric wondered his answer for a while and then guessed. Is it because they want to get rid of their enemies? There was no response. Eric glanced over his shoulder and recognized that Atreus was not satisfied with the answer. However, Malmsted decided that it might be better to leave the distressed prince alone with his own roller coaster of emotions. Tomorrow was another day. My dear and irreplaceable family. It has been 2 days and 1 night since I was bitten by an odd dead during my hunt for food. As you know, I have not been well since that, and all my symptoms just keeps getting worse. The tics I get keep getting stronger, and the voice, I swear, I have started to pick words from that gossip of sorts about the voice in my head. Now, I saw a dream where it was present. I found myself from a large castle, I presume. It was made completely from bricks and stone. However, the whole place was full of red and green glow, making this castle feel like rotten and abandoned. When I moved around, I felt like my motorics were gone. I was walking like a clumsy and slow dead. Also, the voice I kept hearing, it sounded like it said, hate him, or reject him, or something. After roaming around for a while, a wounded stick figure appeared. She was sobbing and begging for her life. The voice inside my head just kept speaking, and it this time said something like, prove me your loyalty. You don't need anyone else than me. In my eyes suddenly flashed, and I, against my own will, leaped at the woman. A disgusting sound of flesh ripping and bones crackling came as blood suddenly poured everywhere. My vision kept flashing and flashing as I saw the person who I attacked. Her stomach was all the way through until her throat opened, and every single piece of skin and meat had disappeared from her legs and arms. When I finally got my vision completely back, I saw the face of the woman, the one face I will never forget, the one face which belonged to my most beloved, the one who I walked to meet to the altar during our happiest day. It was now twisted, torn, withered. Everything which belonged to my beloved was now gone because of me. Even thinking about that hellish dreamscape turns my stomach upside down and stops all my blood. And that same dang voice inside my head is just going on. The time saying something like, you deserve more than that, and catch him, bring him to me. I crawled away towards something. I didn't even know why I went there. Something just kept me on the move. I don't know how long it was until the Crown Prince himself met my gaze. He was just standing there with a very smug and proud gesture on his face. Now the voice in my head said, "Bring him to me. It is time to make him suffer the same way I did. He doesn't deserve a place like this. I have something better for him. Now do it." Atreus stood there doing nothing until two golden royal guard speeders arrived and attacked me. "Pitiful coward!" echoed through the dark castle in my ears. It was the same voice I heard in my head. This time, even more frustrated and hate-filled. Like it was something which had waited in its speaker's head for ages. When I heard that, two Grim Reaper-looking silhouettes attacked behind me and took the guards. They simply ran past me, leaving Atreus alone in the darkness. "You can't defy death. You can't control death. Unlike me," echoed through the halls we were in. Atreus became hysterical and worried. He was shaking on his place, just waiting for me to attack, until my vision flashed again. This time I remember was that I was holding the prince down to a dark pit. Atreus seemed to be unconscious, and there was no resistance to my movement. "Bring him to me," echoed between my ears again. I just hauled Atreus deeper and deeper into the darkness, until a pair of two glowing eyes appeared in front of us. I was greeted by one more statement before I woke up from this hellscape. "This is what you will become." I feel like my freedom has been taken away from me. I have control. I have no control over everything. Even writing is difficult, and the voice inside my head forbids it. After all these assurances that I will survive, they were all wrong. I don't know anymore. I am crippling and falling apart. I can't hold it back anymore. The voice and its source. I know where it comes from. I'm just too sure about it. It has already gotten through me, and it wished me to fulfill the prophecy of this dream. Farewell, for everyone's safety. Forever yours, Edward Creeklake.
28th of June. I've already defeated my sector of the Eclipser Sanctuary. It was no problem. I can also be proud that I'm the first one to achieve it. Later that day we entered that bat cave. I must confess that the architecture is quite beautiful in these chaos regions. We didn't find anything special yet, but it was nice to look around. I hope though Anton is fine. He has been pretty tired, and even for himself. Silent these few weeks. Maybe it's just attrition. 5th of July. It was my pleasure to present the treasure we found to King Zarek himself. Despite it being just another chaos relic, it still is something to be proud of. Also, a treasure hunt itself inside that beautiful sanctuary made it more than worth it. Our king had already prepared a new step for us. He'd take the Royal Guard's 4th Battalion and venture into the Valley of the Endless Deads, a seemingly inhabited area with an eerie name to it. If that doesn't sound like an adventure, then I'd really have to consider repurposing that word. If I heard correctly, my brother Anton would be sent there to under command of Crown Prince Atreus, and his smaller explorer group. Me and my 55th company were moved under Field Marshal Eric Malmsted's 5th Division. I assure am not pleased by that. Two stubborn men in the same room, that won't end up well. 10th of July. I finally met up with my brother again. It seems I was correct about his condition. I don't know, he has been like this for a while. I get it, he's 2 years older than me and always was the level-headed one, but he's just tired. There's no other way to put it. He's completely taken away by his duties and won't even gesture any sort of joy around his comrades. I know writing reports is important, but I think he's gone a bit too overboard with this. I'm sure that his journey to the valley certainly won't help. Our slank scout had returned from there, undead to all of our surprise. That valley might sure live up to its name. Let's hope for the best. I won't lose my brother to some rot monsters. 12th of July. Something is horribly wrong. The Royal Guard Battalion came back with their tail between legs from the valley. They were all covered in mud, dirt, and blood. Even the battalion itself has lost half of its strength. From 300 personnel, only about 200 active personnel gone. Not just active personnel. The most educated, exercised, advanced, wisest, and most disciplined men Inamorta has ever seen. Also, Shade had sent an entire company of his own special service brigade. All of them ended up getting killed alongside the Royal Guard members. Sounds bad enough, but we're also lost. Our very own king to that valley. No one knows his fate, but it surely is not pretty. All I can do now is just wait new orders and hope for the best. 15th of July. Eric Malmsted decided to pull out the big guns, even when he and other important players were explicitly forbidden to intervene. No one can hold that marshal back. He dropped a call to arms to his division. He promised glory and recognition in his rallying roar, but I know that he did it for his own gains. He only cares about him getting to the Royal Guard. Although, who wouldn't wish to get there? Especially when mine and Anton's only professions have been mercenaries and later other officers. Speaking of him, Anton is the only motive I am going to that valley. After I saw the damage and utter devastation in King Zarek's army, I am not stepping into that pit of hell without a reason. Malmsted can be overly confident and blinded by his goals, but so am I. 18th of July. Courier told us the new location of Atreus' camp, when we finally know what to do and where to go. The march looking for them will begin later today, and we gather huge stockpiles of supplies. Multiple boxes and chests of food, firewood, arrows, and new swords and spears. Risky to put all our eggs in one basket, but I and Malmsted won't risk our supply carts getting ambushed by those deads. Then all those crucial belongings are thrown away for nothing. Okay, I gotta go now. Anton sure is waiting to see his brother again. Shall the march begin? 19th of July. After marching in this wood, mates, we finally found it. We found the camp of Atreus. They all seem to be at least alive, but they sure have seen their better days. They all look exhausted, tired, and starving. It truly makes me pity them. However, I haven't found Anton yet. Perhaps I'll see him soon, because night is about to fall and new fights begin. 20th of July. To my disappointment, Anton has already died days ago and is left behind in another camp and his corpse burned. Not a great way to start the day. Later today, Atreus, Malmsted, and I, as Anton's representative, held a meeting where we will determine our most recent marching direction. I am surprised how smoothly it all went. If every single meeting would be this easy and simple. Anyways, we will march towards the east in hopes of finding Archmage Ilaros and his army. Luckily, communications between Atreus and the rest of the army have been re-established, thanks to us. We shouldn't have anything to worry about as long as those are fine. 21st of July. We marched those respectable 50 miles today. If the map Eric has said correctly, we have only about 55 miles left, and Atreus and his comrades will be saved from this misery. Too bad it took Anton, though. I really would have needed him and his calm head. I didn't know that Miss would hit a stick figure this hard. I want to be happy that I have saved an entire battle group, but it feels numb when my one and only brother has been lost. I didn't even get to avenge his death. That is something is humiliating. Riding still before night falls, I heard from Blacksmith Rockford that Anton starved during the second day spent here stuck. Something relieving. At least the dead didn't get to kill him, but Mother Nature got. I don't know, but that makes me feel better when thinking about it. However, now it is time to stand up and fight. 22nd of July. I was so sure that we'd get out of this valley today, but it seems this night we faced against even more and more deaths than ever before. There was about 200 volunteers from the 5th Division and 70 troops left from Atreus and his battle group. Now we face against at least a double amount of deaths than us. It feels like they are building up to something grander, only if I know what. Also, we got really low with our recent supplies. We really should be more cautious from now on. Gotta slow down the pace and make sure everyone does not share the same fate with Anton. It would actually sound surprisingly fitting. Well, we aren't far from getting out of this valley, and today we march the amount we will and keep going on the next day. Soon a new set of supplies should be sent us when we've gotten away from here. I'll write more when we have escorted these fine survivors away from this valley. I sure wish this is the last time I even have to think about this place. It surely should just be erased from the books of history. "21st of July. This is part of my doctor's journal. I make this part public because it holds knowledge everyone here should be aware of. This is something bigger than we've ever seen before. It immediately piqued my fascination. This time, I have also new and sharp scalpels and knives, so cutting board will be now safe option to investigate this case. The one I am speaking of is Edward Creek Lake, and the attack he got into days ago. I interrogated him yesterday, and the results speak for themselves. Edward was very distant, silent, shy, and most of the questions he didn't even answer to them. The poor man was sure that something was haunting him. However, his personality saw massive shifts in behavior, even violent at times. To this journal, I have also added the documents my co-worker Adolf Kainger wrote from our interrogation. Patient interrogation, 20th of July. Interrogation performed by Field Surgeon Elliot Smith. Patient Edward Creek Lake. Interrogation accountant Adolf Kainger. Patient, state your name and occupation. I am Edward Creek Lake. Work at my own farm as the owner of my household. Yes, and family members? I'm turning it Creek Lake, Oak Bay, and our daughter Mia Creek Lake. I see. Well, as you know, we are here to ask some questions about your state of health. May I ask about your physical condition? Do you feel like your performance levels have changed after your tics and cramps became more and more common.
It hurts. It hurts so much. I lose all of my control when I get them. It feels like someone else is moving my limbs against my own will. It's like poison. Poison which devours everything.
The patient lost consciousness after having said that. Interrogation continued after multiple minutes. Well, Mr. Creeklake, you are awake again. Since your physical condition has not changed, given to your responses, we shall move to the core of your issues. How's your head doing right now? Can you describe this voice you mentioned?
Whenever I hear it, it all begins.
So are you trying to say that your spasms are caused by this voice inside your head? Specifically when it tries to command you? Do they also cause you strokes and seizures?
Yes.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
I'm afraid that it is him.
Is he okay?
It's... My goodness.
After Edward laughed, he completely lost it. He attacked at me. Edward started to twitch hysterically and pushed me towards the ground, trying to choke me. Luckily, my friend Adolf intervened and saved me. He pulled Edward away from me, and we managed to get him sit down to the chair again. Now back to the interrogation.
Where is he?
Who are you referring to?
Where is the crown, sir?
Why would I tell? It is evidently clear that you are not to be trusted. Whoever or whatever you are, leave Edward's body right now.
Oh, but you didn't answer to my question, Doctor.
Interrogation over. After a while, Edward managed to break free from the grasps of whatever was that controlled him. Although everyone of us can guess who was behind it. I find it hard to believe that his powers are so advanced. It remains to be seen. Edward told me after the interrogation that he needed some rest and only wanted to be alone, so he can be sure that no one will get hurt. I helped him to get his own tent, and soon he fell asleep. I should have paid more attention to his behavior, but given how easily we got him under control during the interrogation, I thought everything would be alright. Since night was falling and my work hours over, I went to sleep as well. 20th of July. This was certainly a way to begin the day when we break free from this darned valley. When I woke up, I immediately went to inspect Mr. Creeklake's condition. I expected his condition being worse, but not like this. When I entered to his tent, I was greeted by screams of uncontrollable anger and pain. Edward was crawling on the ground and kept repeating the phrase, "I won't let you win." I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to help or how to stop this act. It all came to me too fast. I realized that what I should have done when it was too late. Edward picked up his own arrow quiver after some time crawling on the floor and tried to cut his wounded leg away. However, because those arrows he had would snap if someone tried to bend them too hard, he struck at least 4 arrows up to his knee in hopes that it would break apart. It looked obnoxious, forced and unnatural. Something made him because of pure fear.
and despair to prevent himself from hurting the people around him. He had to use a lot of force to get those arrows through his bones. 2 out of 3 arrows were struck deep into his knee until I finally acted. After I realized what was to be done, I took the rest of the arrows away from him and alerted the guards. After this fiasco, Edward spent the rest of the day under strict surveillance. After we moved about 20 miles today, Atreus ordered me to cut Edward's wounded leg away. I was going to proceed with my operation, and I wouldn't have believed what I found from there.
This should have been the final night. Atreus and his faithful troops would spend on the Valley of the Endless Deads. This night would still present their final contest, orchestrated by no other than the Dark Lord of the Dead, Marrokai. Everyone gathered their belongings, tents were wrapped up, and the direction was set. As Atreus stepped in front of the battalion in front of him, everyone's expression stiffened. There was no longer doubt, there was no longer worries. The one who truly tried to understand the people he worked with was for the first time their leader in the grim and unforgivable location that was the Valley of Endless Deads. Although the expectations were high and the mood equally so, Atreus was more or less tired of being overly formal and filmatic. It was not his style to enter or leave dramatically. He didn't have any sort of speech or freedom or any performance prepared. He only stated, "This will be our last push," and started the march. From this mark, everyone else behind him, same battalion, started the long-awaited escape. It was not long until the thunder, wind and rain started pouring harder than the group had ever seen before. It was all grandiose and loud. Rain and wind inside the valley were indescribable, but so was the dread that was lurking in the shadows. It was those deads again. Every time a light gave its flash, it was like everyone saw their silhouettes from afar. They were just standing there, those dark beings only revealed by lightning and its powerful flashes. It was frightening. However, this time neither side had to be alone. In the storm, the battalion under Atreus was more motivated and battle-hardened than ever imaginable. No matter of those silhouettes in the distance, they are not here, at least yet. This illusion of peace soon ended when red glowing eyes started appearing on both sides of the traveler's road. They were all hiding inside the mist of the dark and proud woods that raced to the sky. Those red eyes just stood there, not even blinking. It was something truly unnerving. A monster without a face, waiting for you to drop your guard. Have no fear. They won't come out in the rain, Atreus soon stated to ease off the tensions. The lightning kept flashing and wind blowing like it tried to send the trees to fly. The flashing lightning, the whining wind, and the relentless rain combined together in this setting the perfect symphony of despair. Flashes revealing the threats surrounding the adventurers, followed by the low and loud thunder, which flowed to ears like snake crawling inside the slithering and outside from the other ear. The rain made everything feel heavier, and the ground started to turn into unstable and soft mud, where you can fall through at any moment. It all lasted about half an hour, leaving everyone tremble in shock. It was truly devastating for the unit's morale. Everything. This bravery, fierce motivation, willingness to fight, they were all gone from the shivering and cold husks of men. After time, which felt like eternity, rain started to ease off a little until loose resemblance of it was left. It was now when the deaths revealed themselves and the rotten, decayed, slimy and dirty corpses. They came in front of the battalion. They crawled out from the forest surrounding Atreus and his men. Even from underground the deaths ambushed and beaten down the group.
Get ready. They aren't giving us any mercy. Stand up and fight! Field Marshal Momstead shouted in the group this time. Manage yourselves. Take out the risers. They are the ones that matter right now. Atreus ordered defiantly. The battalion caught what he was going for and bailed out their ambushed partners. It was done in short time and no severe wounds were inflicted. While the deaths from front and sides, the army was slowly strolling at their foes. Atreus' units were already prepared and formed back up. The deaths were too slow to reach up the battalion in time, and they were heavily punished for it. The first to line up the deaths attacking got cut down in no time. However, this didn't matter. Marokkaida orchestrated a big and grand final test to Atreus for this night, and part of that test was him having to survive the attack of 600 deaths, who easily could have overwhelmed the Ogre battalion. Retreat! Retreat! They can flank us! Marshal Momstead and Atreus shouted from the tip of their lungs. Eric managed to get away in time, but Atreus got surprised by a pouncer dead and got wrestled and nailed down to the ground. Atreus felt panic surging over him. The dead got a grip to his forearm and was not letting it loose. It hurt like someone had struck his wrist with a hammer. Even the breath of the dead was enough to make Atreus lose his consciousness. Soon Atreus managed to get the dead away from his top and cut his arm away with his dagger. Unfortunately, it took long enough for him to shake the dead off, because the deads closing his battalions were already in front of him and prepared to strike. Atreus had his arms down, and one dead already striking position to end all days of his freedom. It would have been all over if it wasn't for the loyalists he had been acquiring since the first day spent in this valley. Alexander Rockford, Albert Fleming, even surprisingly Edward Creeklake had arrived to bail him out. As the two Archidons and one Swordrat cleared the Spearton's surroundings, giving the prince time to react and get back on his feet. When Atreus got his balance under control, he immediately rushed away from Asmar sent to capture him. So did Alex and Albert. Edward had his entire throat covered with bandages, and despite being back in action, needed help to remain his balance and while running. So Fleming was there to help him with that. Soon they caught up with the rest of the Order battalion. What were you doing there? You could have died! Lancelot scolded his new friend he had made a long time, Alexander. Let the one who saved your life be left to the grasp of death just like that. Talk about being disgraceful. Rockford said back. Despite the obvious dangers of the setting Atreus and his army was in, the trap which was prepared for them failed. They were encircled, and they've survived from the attack with minimal losses and wounds. There was still no reason to party. The battle kept going on and showed no signs of ending. No one would have wanted to face a swarm of deaths like that, but they were on Atreus' and his comrades' way out of the valley. Which would be a better alternative? Stand firm on your ground, playing defensive and wait until the dawn, play aggressive and try to push through that pile of dead, or back off and find another route. Trying to attack at a foe more than twice of your size sure was a wish for suicide. Backing off would mean that this horde would be still after you, and you will draw even more deaths after you by returning deeper to the valley. Defense sounded the best option right now. It enabled all the two previous choices to be the backup plan, and would be the option with the least amount of risks. Hang on until dawn, or win the battle even before that. Today was not time to back off. Everyone knew it. Like always, it was time to stand up for the last time and hold your ground. Listen closely. Everyone stay close to each other. Archidons, head to the back lines. Wounded and Swordrat, get in front of the Archidons. Speartons form the front lines. That means me too. Atreus, the best he could while still recovering from panic. He took few deep breaths and gathered all the bravery left in himself,
and yelled one last thing. "You heard that! Form up!" When Atreus finally got the courage to finish his orders, the battalion following him performed each step smoothly and confidently. This managed to rise Atreus' mood a little. The army was still on his side and had not given up yet. As the gigantic horde of deaths in front of them slowly crawled at the front lines, Arginons opened fire and showing no mercy. Despite their small numbers, they managed to mow down quite a few targets with ease. When these deaths finally reached up to the Spartans, a slaughter, which put even the seasoned fighters' nerves and strength to test, began. Atreus felt like he was stabbing towards a brick wall with his spear. Every time a dead fell out of the way, another came and got his blades away. Stabbing into that concrete chaos was hard enough, but he couldn't even risk looking at them and lower his shield. Because of the sheer pressure against Atreus' shield, he felt like he could fall down at any moment. This race against attrition felt eternal. Atreus' already tired and exhausted muscles started to ache worse than ever before. The painful experience showed no signs of ending. More and more strikes were made at his shield, and even more deaths were approaching the Spartan wall with a scale that surely could have broken through it in a matter of seconds. Just a little longer. Just a little longer. Each Spartan thought while the mass in front of them was surely going to send them packing. It was inevitable. Atreus had to make a choice now if Malmsted was not going to make a move. "Spartans, stand up. Push the deaths away. Everyone else retreat. We need distance to our foe. Strike in 3. 1, 2, 3. Without any messing about it, the Spartans followed the order and bashed their shields at the undead mass with their remaining strength. It pushed their foes at least 2 meters away and caused a roadblock that the road deaths were moving. Before that block would open, Atreus with his Spartans retreated, with the rest of the army at least 25 meters away. It all looked like Atreus' tricks worked. He managed to create space between his enemy and allowed his Spartans to rest for a while. "All crew, status report." Eric Malmsted suddenly raised his voice from behind the lines. "We're fine. Shall we release our short brat to fight alongside us? Spartans, we are not going to stand that mass even with the Arginos support. This fight needs all of us." Atreus cried out loud his frustrations and fears. During his lament, the dead started to succeed them again, this time with the Pouncer dead support. All the Spartans could do now was to brace themselves for impact. That was not going to be easy. There was no hope trying to repel the over 50 Pouncers as 120 Spartan line. They just had to hope the best and fear the worst. As the shields and undead flesh made contact, the Spartans fell on the wet and dirty ground like straw men and were left completely on the mercy of rotten flesh. Soon swords began to swing, and sounds of flesh tearing apart started to echo all around the battlefield. It was a frantic struggle for survival for every single second with no time to breathe. All the struck down Spartans were able to feel the dark and dried yellow and thick blood flowing all over their bodies as the struggle around them kept progressing. "I hope this was not the way what you felt, brother," Jackson Squarewood thought. Him being forced to lay on top of what appeared to be biodegraded blood and gore made him feel like he could vomit at any second. After they almost drowned the gore environment, he was in suddenly someone began to gather the pieces of flesh around him and try to help him stand up. The Order battalion had slaughtered the Pouncer deaths under half a minute, but it still felt like an eternity of suffering in the most inhuman conditions. Spit.
rotten, broken down hemoglobin. The liquid combined with the obnoxious stink of death made speaking impossible. He could only cough and gasp for enough air so he wouldn't choke. Calm down. You protected us well, Atreus. All of us. Now it's our time to protect you. Low and stern voice said right behind the crown prince. It was no other than Marshal Malmsted with his sword draft ready to take on the rest of the mass that was right in front of them. Stand firm and fight twice as hard as you did those pouncers. Archidons, do not save a single arrow. Don't hesitate. Just shoot. Eric declared in a very proud manner. His quest for glory and recognition had gone so smoothly until this point. He was not going to let his work go to waste. Even worse, had let Atreus pull all the strings and call the shots. If Malmsted wished to present him as the hero of the operation, he had to pick up the pace and make sure everything went well thanks to him. Atreus was still gathering himself and coughing like he had to have breathed poison while Malmsted took all the matters into his own hands. The prince felt like he could just lose his consciousness at every second. He didn't have time to breathe enough and the coughing showed no signs of stopping. This hell of fear lasted about 20 seconds until Atreus got his breathing under control. He was ready to keep fighting until he felt that something grabbed his ankle with a firm and strong grip. Atreus turned around to see a dead from the recent attack still clinging together. Its eyes glowed exceptionally bright, and it tried to mutter something from its long-gone vocal cords. Brother. I recognized you, Moose. I've been looking for a while now. I've been analyzing you. Your poor friend Edward didn't get to deliver his messages, but I can do it as well. You know the map of your father. I have a piece of it as well. And it has brought me something that you will never believe. Also, you will be the primary subject. My tests have proven me right of its power. Happened whatever happened, you will be one of us, and you will fear it. It sounded incredibly odd. The otherwise snarling, raspy and rough voice had another voice echoing on the top of the dead's voice. Atreus recognized the echo itself, but not whose it was. He also had zero clue what the dead even actually tried to make him fear. After the red glow in its eyes stopped, Atreus grabbed his spear and ended the dead's misery in a heartbeat. Meanwhile, Malmsted with his sword were rushing and at the deads in front of them in the belief that support provided by Archidons was chipping their foes enough that they wouldn't become overwhelmed. However, the supply still available were minuscule compared to the unit's needs, and after a couple harsh days, it started to show its consequences. While Malmsted was prepared for a flashy entrance and departure, the reality was slow crawl against the will of the valley he marched in just to boost his own career. During that struggle, his Archidons had already wasted 2/3 of their arrow, and remnants of that amount was now burning to zero. However, Eric's spearheads and swordcraft were still in fine shape and the weapons still clean and sharp, unlike Atreus's. Despite the circumstances, all the soldiers were giving their finest. Alex, I can take care of this. I owe you one, and even to Anton. Lancelot tried to convince that he can join to the battle despite his hands being in weak and unstable condition. Even his sword wouldn't probably stay in his hands. Don't join to this nonsense. You don't have to take care of it, unlike me. It was a struggle to get you with your senses, and I'm not going to throw it away. Rockford tried to argue back, and as he raised his sword, preparing for his final showdown. The deads had now reached at the battalion, and immediately swords and fists started to move and flail around the field. While the soldiers tried their best
with their thin spread front lines, tried to hold the entire mass in front of them. The recovered spearmen thrust behind them to fill the gaps left open and stop the attack they made against the battalion. While Marshal Malmsted tried to fall back from the front lines, Atreus with the rest of his spearmen ran right into action. Order's defensive maneuvers were strong enough to stop the advancing Deads, but they showed no signs of stopping. The struggle would keep going on for minutes. The solid line of defense was only maintained because of the Dead's inefficient attacks and strikes. All this changed when a yell echoed throughout the force on the Order's sides. "We've run out of arrows!" This twist was a pure death sentence for Malmsted's plans. When the arrows barges which made the Dead's lines considerably thinner disappeared, the pressure to his sword rats and spearmen had to endure was now turning into overwhelming. "Fear not, they are running low on numbers as well," Malmsted shouted back, referring to the Deads. "I wouldn't be so sure. We have to keep retreating." Atreus opposed, while the rest of the army seemingly sided with him and began to take steps back from their enemies, creating new space between them. This was an utter catastrophe in Eric's mind. His plan had failed, and mercy was surely not given to him or his subordinates. If he didn't come up with something new and fast, everything would be over for him. "It's time to act, not to run away. We got to keep fighting," Arthur Lancelot expressed. After everyone else began to pull themselves back, for the entirety of the time being stuck in the valley, he had been on everyone's way and always being so desperate to getting out of there. He was so close at achieving it, and it was because of him fulfilling his duties in the front he had been evading. If those duties required his life, then so be it. Lancelot, while retreating with everyone else, stopped in his tracks and prepared to fight once again. He swung his blade with those half functional wrists and otherwise exhausted body. His blade flew in wide and clumsy arcs, which sure wounded the Deads in front of him, but they weren't enough to kill them. It didn't even matter to Arthur. He already attempted to end his life once, but this time it was for a cause. "Oh, what the hell are you doing? Get back!" Alexander yelled at Lancelot and rushed to the field. He grabbed Arthur by his shoulder, performed a spin where he threw Lancelot away with his sword, Alex mutilated 3 Deads at the same time. Alex succeeded in what he was doing, but the slain Deads by Arthur managed to get through his guard and grabbed Rockford from his ankle. Because of this, Alex tripped down and was completely left on his own Deads mercy. "Oh, why no one can keep the formation together? Pull him away from there!" Atreus slashed out of frustration and fear that he might lose yet another motivated and optimistic personnel. "On the way," Jackson Squarewood said when he prepared for his shield bash. When he attacked, a loud clang echoed throughout the entire forest as the sound of bone breaking apart complemented the strike Jackson performed. The Deads eating and scratching Alex flew away, but it was all too late. Alexander was now completely covered by bite marks and dark, thick blood that was pouring out of them. The wounds themselves weren't lethal, but the loss of blood killed the swordcraft in seconds. He's dead!" Squarewood yelled out of disgust and sense of failure as he quickly returned to the formation.
Atreus began to curse himself about all the trauma gone through. If his soldiers kept dying like this, there would be no chances for survival. However, the ratio of dead enemies and allies was indeed astounding. Multiple Deads taken away for one ally. Maybe there was still hope left after all. "Halt the retreat! We can't let them stop us now. Keep your positions. If we play our crowds right, we may still win. If Alexander was prepared to die tonight, so am I," Atreus stated. Tonight he shall redeem his past and show everyone who he has become after this event. It was time not to be the leader his units required, be the leader the Order Empire required. Captain always sinks with his own ship, and the Empire would be no different. Spartans, another shield bash. Wait until the deaths have reached us, Atreus commanded. Spartans followed his instructions and awaited the mark their chief would give. When we hit them, try to bash them as far as possible. When that is done, push them even further with your shields. Let's take room away from them. As the mood once again was rising between the Order's front lines, the Dead's possibilities for a breakthrough would be gone. Now! Atreus slashed from the bottom of his lungs and dashed forward with his shield pointing towards his foes. As each Spartan performed their maneuvers, the Deads were pushed in such a tight place they lost their ability to do any countering maneuvers. The battalion took full advantage of this. The successful shield bash attacks, soldiers rushed between the Spartans to slaughter the undead flesh without any signs of opposition. The massacre was so action-packed, and the soldiers had to take multiple breaks because of their exhaustion. But the Deads were so stuffed in one tight spot, they had no coming back. The slaughter lasted minutes, and in that time the plan had worked, and the masses of undead attackers was finally defeated, and the road from out the valley cleared. We did it! Was there ever any doubt? Jackson Square would gleefully express his opinion about the victory. Despite the immense success, things were still quite done. Atreus and his troops were severely wounded and mentally unstable after being stuck inside the Valley of Endless Deaths for over 10 days and nights without possibilities for sleep or proper nutrition. They also still had quite a journey to get out of the valley they were in. Neither the pain nor suffering was going to end yet. After their triumph, a large tremor got everyone's attention. It was like a giant walking through the woods. Except that it was even larger than the biggest monstrosities the Order Empire has faced in no man's lands or from the Chaos Empire. The tremors grew stronger and stronger, but no one knew where they actually came from. Hold up, don't drop your guard just yet, Eric Malmsted tried to gather up the attention. Even for him, a marshal who was known by his determination and thick-headedness, had to understand whatever was now at hand, running away was the only reasonable option. The tremors began to sound like they came now less from 100 meters ago, but thanks to the night's darkness, nothing was to be seen. Because of the apparent danger, it was clear for everyone that the battalion wouldn't be in the condition to take down a giant. However, no one knew where it was coming from, so running away into the apparent darkness of the woods would be a risk no one was ready to take because of their exhaustion, lack of sleep, and proper weapons or means to combat a giant. Suddenly, the trembling stopped. The silence lasted for multiple seconds, and everyone felt slight relief. What if whatever caused those noises weren't after all there? The illusion of peace got shattered when the Archidons heard a roar louder than any sound heard in the valley this night behind them. Before anyone had the time to even process what happened, a large boulder made of stone struck at the Archidons, killing dozens of them and causing everyone to lose their balance. When Atreus realized what happened, he made a mad dash out of desperation towards the Archidons in hopes that he could save the possible survivors. The prince wasn't thinking rationally. He performed completely by his emotions, impulses, and senses. Whatever his reflexes told him, he did it. Ran right into action to save everyone he could, whatever that meant. Meanwhile, Marshal Malmsted ordered everyone to back off and head out to the valley by running to the east. Atreus was having none of it. Soldiers were still in trouble and trying to get away from that giant which attacked them. The first person Atreus locked his attention to was Edward Creeklake. The man had stumbled down to the ground and was in trouble getting up with one functional leg. Atreus made his way to help Edward stand up, but before they had time to move, the giant hit the ground again with the large stone boulder it had. Fortunate for the prince, the giant was now hitting the pile of already dead and mutilated archstones. It sure shook the ground, but it was not enough to make Atreus stumble again. When Edward had finally recovered from the abrupt event, he glanced over his shoulder to see the silhouette of the giant. It looked oddly familiar to a Spartan. It had similar helmet and boulders, which kept hitting the ground, was actually its shield. The most chilling detail was the sheer size of the giant. It was colossal, even towering over any giant Greek lake had seen during his time in the army. He had no time to examine the giant further, since it began to prepare for another strike. Edward began to panic. Alone he couldn't have made the way in time, but with Atreus helping him on the way, Edward managed to get away from the attack in time. As the two kept running away from the Colossus and trying to catch up with the rest of the unit battalion, the giant itself began to pursue them. However, because of the giant's condition, which resembled undead, he wasn't able to keep up with the stick figures running away from it. After Atreus and Edward had caught up with the rest of the army group, the battalion, for the first time of the night, was now able to slow and calm down with a reason not to fear. Atreus, being someone who hadn't paid attention to Edward's health state, began to wonder why and how the man had gotten back to fighting condition. As Creakley began to elaborate the research field Sergeant Smith had made so Edward could finally be himself again, a sense of relief began to wave over Atreus. You see, Elliot began to cut me with his blades from the spot I was bitten. From there he found something remarkable, which would change the entire way we see deaths and how they manage to function cooperatively. Elliot found out that there has been an organ growing inside my body. It has something to do with my neural systems of a stick figure. The tumor, he called it, had grown and attached to my own nerves. At least, that was what Sergeant Smith's conclusion told. We didn't have much time to really examine it. However, when Elliot cut the piece away from that red and otherwise slimy and sticky tumor, I managed to get my body back under control again. I still hear the same voice in my head, and for short periods of time, but it ain't a problem anymore. As long as it won't take my body under control, I'm happy about it. It is truly a shame. I even made myself almost break my legs because of that distress. I was so desperate. Atreus, after hearing the whole story, couldn't help but feel anger boiling inside him. The vivid depiction he made in his head about the tumor was incredibly obnoxious, and have been rooted by the bite of an undead, mutilated and departed corpse made it even more disgusting to think about. Before he could think further, Eric Malmsted declared gleefully at the battalion, "Gentlemen, we made it. We departed from the Valley of Endless Deaths." This declaration quickly took Atreus away from this nightmarish fear from Edward's health and his surroundings. Then he realized that he and his men had reached the outskirts of the valley, where soil began to change more rough and sandy, and pine trees had more variety to them. There were pines, birches, and even the oaks and there, contrasted to the valley's simple spruce woods. Also, it appeared that the battalion had reached into campsite, which was larger headquarters for the entire 5th Division under Malmsted. While Eric gathered volunteers to enter the valley to save the Crown Prince, he ordered rest of his division to set a camp for the place where Eric tried to aim for after he would have saved Atreus. This was a warm welcome back to the world of Inamorta, which was not ruled by the law of jungle. Now the laws of the Order Empire were here to assure everyone's safety. As the battalion began to set their own tents and fulfill their chores, Atreus began to write his report to Zillers about the events in the valley. At first he wished to get Eric's army the same report, but the marshal declined because of the situation's background. You see, Prince, that your uncle Royal Mage Silros forbidden me to intervene with his own conquest for the valley. He started a few days after your father's capture. See, the reason why I am here was because Royal Mage Silros didn't even pay attention to you. I sure wondered why, but now, having saved you, I did something I wasn't allowed to. If Silros thinks you have something to do with it, it would be an end for both of us. Let me explain everything on my own, specifically about my own campaign. I did. Silros shall scold or praise me for it. I hope you understand my point. Atreus wondered this suggestion for a while, but he soon thought that maybe Eric was correct and he shouldn't intervene. You see, I wasn't thinking through everything I performed, but my plan had everything figured out, Prince. Your pet, Clicky. I ordered my friend to bring him here. If you'd like to see where he is, he's in the stable. Eric said to add it in his defense. I don't know how should I take this. Thank you, Marshal. It's true delight to hear that. Atreus said while bowing in respect. Feel free to thank me, Prince. After all, you've been separated for exceptionally long time if I am concerned. Eric said back, while in a very self-important manner boasting his ego again. Atreus chuckled as well, but soon duties called him back to his work. All right. If we will write reports on our own, I will start to inspect my own soldiers. I haven't yet listed my survivors after that giant attacked. Seems like Chaos has found some new monsters to the flock. See you soon, Marshal. Atreus stated and began to make a way to his own troops while Eric proudly looking at the campsite his division has made. Until suddenly the field marshal remembered something. Hold it, Prince. We have one thing left to discuss. Atreus stopped right into his tracks, not knowing what Malmsted had in mind, until Eric elaborated more. Remember when you asked me about why soldiers keep fighting? I believe my answer back then was not the one you wished for, Prince. What exactly is it then, if they won't fight because they fight what's ahead of them? Atreus took a long pause. He tried to gather all the correct words for himself in a way which would tie everything he learned from the valley's tests. When he finally was satisfied, he told his very own view on the matter. A soldier fights, not because they hate what is ahead of them. Soldiers fight because they care what to defend and what is behind them. Those who had family, job, land, whatever they cared about to fight for, to live for, didn't take their lives away when things got harsh. Eric was certainly intrigued by this revelation, but it was not the reply he was expecting. For all of his years in the army, as an infantryman or as an officer, no one had ever brought such a look on the grassroots level and why it behaved in the way they did. His philosophy, or more precisely, his goals started to feel more and more meaningless after and insufficient when he looked at them through the lens of Atreus given by him. 24th of July, year 678. Status report by the Crown Prince from days 10th of July to 23rd of July. Report listed by Atreus, the leader of the Spartans. Report date 23 of July, year 678. Casualties 7 personnel. Killed in action. Alexander Rockford, age 29, married, yes. Profession weaponsmith. Albert Fleming, age 40, married, no. Civilian profession crofter. Current profession Architon mercenary. Zachary Antas, age 37, married, no. Profession Architon mercenary. Hans Mason,
age 36, married, yes. Profession blacksmith. Nikander Pilt, age 25, married, no. Profession carpenter. Starvation. Anton Squarewood, age 41, married, no. Profession military officer. Suicide. Julian Kennel, age 23, married, no. Profession caravana. Wounded. The rest of the whole unit. 15 soldiers, sword draft, 3 archidons and 4 speartons. Additional losses. 1 tent and each soldier's weapon of choice, piedons, every single armor piece. Specified letter to Royal Archmage Zilaros, written in 24th of July. My dear uncle, after being stuck in the Valley of the Endless Deaths for 9 days and fighting there 10 full nights, has been a confrontation surely remembered in history. That is why I have a specified request, and I need to know your own opinion of it. As you know, and have read of from Marshall, we've been put through a hardship beyond imagination. This was something you warned us all about. It is harsh and weak event of suffering. Despite the low casualties, we've lost so much. My men, even when we have spent 2 days away from the valley, report having severe sleep problems, constant surges of panic, eating problems, and general apathy. Believe me when I say that they are not in the condition to fight. Our medics have managed to heal the wounds thanks to their kind of giving hearts. However, scars left on every single one of us won't ever fade, no matter the magic used. After my time spent with them, I have to put my feet down. Give me a permission to send my battle group back home. They have a family, a job, land, whatever, which awaits them there. Even more important, they need time to recover. Not just from their physical wounds or from their emotional distress. They have to get their lives back when this war has tormented them this much. Humbly requesting, Crown Prince Atreus and the leader of the Speartons. Of July. My nephew, I see what you're trying to tell. However, I'm not going to get rid of such talent of fine soldiers we have. Your father gave a group of battle-hardened veterans who've had multiple battles under their belt. I'm not giving you such a permission. Sending these same soldiers who had fought since the Chaos Empire declared war against us away just to take a piece of expertise from the front lines won't help us. Besides, it wouldn't help the home front nor the economy. It is a relief that you have even managed to keep them alive. They are irreplaceable veterans after all. Trying to be a little more personal here as well. Haven't you heard of the news? King Zarek is no longer with us. I don't know if he's alive or not, but it means we have a new time ahead of us. I take it as you aren't ready to sit on the throne, so I shall take the empire under my thumb. Actually, have you even considered yourself one day becoming the king? Where was the prince when Zarek went missing? Why did you leave us? I'm waiting your response. She'll start to find a new heir for the throne. I am not convinced by your performance exactly. You should have undermined you before Zarek sent you to die. I should have undermined you before Zarek sent you to die. Zilaros, the royal wizard and the hand of the king. Atreus, after reading this letter, became infuriated. First being left alone in the darkness. Even the one who came to save him explicitly told him that it was forbidden. That was one thing, but his request completely falling on deaf and negligent ears was something unbelievable, especially by his uncle.
Marshal Malmsted tried for once to pay a visit to Atreus' tent. Before he could enter there, he heard violent and animalistic noise only a child during its tantrum would make. Atreus kicked his chair around the tent, struck his fist to the desk he had, and tossed the letter he received all around the covers. He was also growling, huffing out of sheer disappointment and anger. Atreus didn't even pay attention to the flickering lamp hanging from the top of his tent. At any moment, he could have dropped it and set the whole tent ablaze. Eric became hesitant to enter to that one tent. Atreus certainly was not ready for any visitors, and given to the state of his belongings, would be after that outburst, Malmsted wouldn't have the capacity to even enter such mess. After the prince had tired himself enough, he picked his chair and put it back on its place. He sat down like a slothy and careless drunkard. Then Atreus apparently began to write something down. Eric could only guess by the shadows cast by the tent's edges because of the lamp. Eric could only guess by the shadows casted by the lamp on Atreus' tent, until the prince rose up and walked out of the tent carelessly, with a long and quick steps. He stepped out of the silk tent with apparently a document in his hands. Atreus was in such a hurry, he even walked past Eric without even noticing him. It was only until Malmsted cleared his throat and lashed. "What was that all about? What has caused you to lose your nerve so bad?" Then Atreus stopped and glanced over his shoulder. He stood there staring back at the marshal without any dignity or respect. He took few and heavy breaths before giving his final order to the battle groups as its commander. "It's nothing. Take care of this. Mind you, Sir Malmsted. It means for my troops and their close ones. A. He took few deep and heavy breaths before giving his final order as the battle group's commander. "It's nothing. Take care of this. Mind you, Sir Malmsted, it is meant for my troops and their close ones. And remember this, not a word to Silos about this," Atreus said while giving the piece of paper in his hands to Eric. He continued, "I've seen that no one in the head of the Empire cares about ending this accursed massacre. I've seen that no one in the head of the Empire cares about finally ending this accursed massacre. They don't understand the things I had to understand and learn during my time in that valley. They don't need an entire legion for some treasure hunt. If Silarus is too busy with that, then I don't intervene. However, I'm doing something he never would. I'm going to leave the Empire and find our last enemy into my hands and kill it. As long as the Dark Lord of the Dead thrives, peace won't be granted. I don't wish to be remembered as a hero, but as someone who found his own purpose through the long history of the Order Empire. The Empire may deserve something better, but I believe breaking formalities and finding your own purpose chosen by you and only yourself is what we need." Eric was quite flattered by this sudden reveal. He didn't know what to expect anymore. He had no idea how to react to anything around him anymore. All he could do was stare at his empty and thoughtful expression. All he could do is stare with his empty and thoughtful expression. Thanks to you, I've learned what it means to be a rebel. Thanks to my fine soldiers, I learned what it means to be loyal. They are both necessary. If it wasn't for my subordinates, none of us would have survived. If it wasn't for you and your fine soldiers, None of us would have survived, Marshal, Atreus said while handing his paper to Eric. Malmsted took it, but his expression didn't see a change. Everything the prince in front of him said was something provoking to the. Malmsted took it, but his expression didn't see a change. Everything the prince said in front of him was something so provoking, and the marshal that he was completely stuck on thinking about the same thing over and over again. Give my order to ones who have served me. I have a war to end, and this week has taught me something about surviving in the wild. It has been an honor to fight on your behalf, Sir Malmsted, Atreus said, this time considerably calmer and happier than the previous speeches. After the princess said what he wished to say, he headed towards the hideout's rooftop readery to meet up with Clicky, his ever faithful companion. Eric was still left to wonder with himself about his life and career. The fact that Atreus gave him such a trustworthy mission was a lot to ask, even from a field marshal. The many thanks Eric had gathered to himself because of him saving the crown's prince was confronting for the man. He gained recognition, but not in the way he wanted. He wished to be recognized by the authority higher than him and make his way to the Order Empire's royal guard. But that wasn't the point. It was just a goal to be reached. Eric had, despite many shortcomings, made himself a hero that should have been already thought for him. Eric had, despite many shortcomings, made himself hero, and that should have been already enough for him. He did something forbidden, and it paid off in an unexpected way. The way Atreus put it, I don't wish to be remembered as a hero, but as someone who has found his own purpose in the long history of the Order Empire. The Empire may deserve something better, but I believe breaking formalities and finding your own purpose chosen by you and only yourself is what we need. What if the royal guard should not have been the goal? Eric was tried. What if the royal guard should not have been his goal to begin with? Should Eric have tried to find his own path to glory like the prince did? Was the royal guard even something worth fighting for if someone else find lot more fulfillment in their lives not by becoming influential or powerful, instead of becoming spiritually and socially fulfilled by their family ties, friends, and maintaining what you already have, not just blindly running after new sources of glory and power? Eric's thoughts gained reinforcements when he read Atreus' papers he gave to the marshal. It was exactly what it should have been, an order sent the wounded and exhausted to home. We are going to have a difficult journey, but as long as you are with me, I will cherish each second of it, Atreus said cheerfully with his eagerness and determination. Atreus said cheerfully with full of eagerness and determination as he began to undo the knot on the rope which kept Clicky in his place. Once the Reaptor got released, it immediately began to lick its master's face with relief and happiness. It was apparent that the two had missed each other for a while. Atreus couldn't help but chuckle to it. He was finally with an entity that might... Atreus couldn't help but chuckle to it. He was finally with an entity he might as well consider his own child in a way. It lightened up the prince's heart and mind so much after the time spent on the bleak and unforgiving valley of the endless deads. Clicky, once its excitement was slightly toned down, began to look at his master more closely. It was the same man it had known for the length of its life. It was the same man it had known for the length of its life, but had never seen such a drastic change in his appearance. Atreus had dark, empty sockets below his eyes. His smile looked lot more pale and unrecognizable. It was so much more lenient and less expressive than the time before Atreus' struggle in the valley. He also had long, sharp bristles all over his cheeks, which were taken care of. Also, the scar over Atreus' right eye had swollen and gotten inflamed due to lack of hygiene. The same face which Clicky had glanced for so long looked like it had been aged years by only 1 week. However, the Atreus which looked back at However, the Atreus which looked back at it was still the same youthful and rebellious Spartan as always. Before leaving the camp, Atreus grabbed himself a brand new spear and knife without a hint of rust in them. He also picked a new shield from the armory that wasn't dented into being borderline useless in battle. After everything was done, and Atreus given his orders and renewed his gears, he was ready to leave with his only true friend back to the wilderness, in hopes to finally take down the monstrosity that was Marokai's reign over the remnants of the Chaos Empire. Atreus saddled his faithful pet and raced to its back and prepared to venture back into the wild. To be continued.
You won't even guess how much I've missed you. From now on, we will never be separated, friend. This world has been cursed and tormented for too long by the same faces and same things. No matter how long it will take for two of us, but we will put an end to it all, so this world can finally blossom in peace.